All right, it's 7 o'clock and we've got a quorum of all 5 members of the board in attendance. And we, yes, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and begin with our invocation and pledge. Well, thank you for the opportunity to meet tonight to work on behalf of the citizens of Amelia. Thank you for the good weather we've had recently and that we were spared the worst of the hurricane. Please be with those in the rest of the country who are still recovering from the hurricane in both the south and the north. Be with all those that are suffering due to COVID and other ailments across Amelia, Virginia, and the U.S. Please be with all of us tonight. Help us make wise decisions and return home safely this evening. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I believe we've only got two items already on the agenda for this evening. Do you have anything that anyone needs to add or modify for this evening's agenda? Okay. All right. Got a motion to approve as presented. Thank you. All those in favor, sign of aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. All right. And Ms. Avery, thank you for joining us tonight. We'll get started with our ordinance K, as it's currently known, I believe. So we'll let you get started with that conversation. I think everyone's got copies.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's actually the title of it. So I think that could definitely be shortened.
Yeah. Very descriptive, isn't it?
Yes. And I did find that in researching other counties, it looks like a lot of them do break this ordinance up into lots of different ordinances, one for tires, one for junk cars, maybe one for solid waste, and then maybe one for maintenance of premises or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that'll be addressed in the codification process, but I think it might be.
Okay. That's nice.
Most of the other counties surrounding us do have muni code, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a few have general code. And I think we should avoid going through the court system whenever we can. It always involved having to go to a magistrate and pulling a subpoena on somebody, and then they have to locate that person. And it's just a lot of staff time, and it just, then we get there and the judge doesn't really take it very seriously most of the time, littering,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in here with murderers and, everything else. So it just, Jeff had suggested that we change our ordinance from criminal penalties to civil penalties. And I think that's probably the way to go. But then I don't really know how you assess a civil penalty, how you go about that. I don't know if you still have to go in front of the judge or not. I was hoping Jeff could advise us on that.
He's waiting to get on.
Okay.
I think there may be 2 meetings going on. I don't know why.
But that had been his suggestion. Then I kind of just went through the ordinance, and, since we wrote it back in 1997, I've been dealing with it all that time. Just a few notes I've made about minor changes, like in the definitions, go from green box site to convenience center. We got to change USA Waste doing business as chambers to waste management throughout it. We had entertained adding clutter since the state has allowed us to do that now. And then maybe even remove the definition of waste collection recycling site, because it's kind of the same thing as a convenience center. But why we need both of them. Then I started with our first section, which is maintenance of premises. And really over the years, this actually has worked pretty good for us. It's most of the time we use this when somebody complains about someone's grass being too tall. And trust me, we get a lot of those.
Mm-hmm.
But that is only under certain zoning, would not affect agricultural zoning. It's usually subdivisions, businesses, that sort of thing. We go out and take a look. And if it is over 12 inches and it is in the zoning where it should be cut, we simply write a letter. And really, most of the time when people get a letter on government letterhead, they try to comply. You'll always have a few hard heads. And like I said, in this, sometimes we deal with the same properties year after year after year. So it would be nice to be able to just pop them with a fine at some point, just to get their attention.
Who goes out? Is that,
That's me.
okay.
Yeah, and we usually take pictures and all of that. And we give them 10 days. That's what the ordinance says. You have 10 days to get it straight. And if they're working on it, we keep giving them more time.
Yeah. Well, and I personally, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I think I agree. Most people tend to want to do things right. And you bring something to their attention, they resolve it. It does seem challenging, like you said, the ones that are continued, that we don't have then another step that's
Right.
available. Doesn't mean you have to use it even,
Yes.
but we don't have another tool available even right now.
Right.
Yeah.
We actually can go out and cut the grass ourselves. And we've done that, what, in one case, Taylor? Over in Redfield, South. But, you know, there again, that takes staff time and how much, you know, what is the board's feeling on doing that?
Right.
I mean, we could possibly keep somebody on retainer, some contractor to go in and cut grass when it gets
Does,
past a certain point. That would be something y'all would do.
does the code allow us to then bill the people for that? I definitely don't want to do it just as,
No. We either bill them or put a lien on their property if they, yeah,
okay,
get exactly the wording.
okay.
Yeah. I think in the past we had to put a lien and we did get that money back, didn't we, Taylor? The Public Works
Mhm.
works up a bill of what it,
Mm.
you know, their time and materials cost them and put it on the property.
That's the remedy if they don't pay, put a lien on their house.
On the
Like
property.
a tax lien.
Yeah. Yeah, at first it is chargeable and payable by the owner. And then if they don't pay it, then put a lien on their property.
Where are you?
That is section D on, section 2D. And we don't go out looking for this. That would take a full-time person doing just that. We just respond to complaints.
Seems sufficient.
So that is my, you know, thoughts on the maintenance of premises. Like I said, it works fairly well.
Mhm.
Maybe just changing the penalties to civil versus criminal may be the way to go with that one. Next section was section 3, prohibited disposition of waste. Once again, we just need to change green boxes to convenience centers. Then Article 2 is solid waste disposal. We need to change some of these items 1
I'm
through.
sorry, can we, I apologize. I just.
Yeah.
So like section 4, I
Uh-huh.
don't know if you get any notes on that one, but like, is this something, this looks. What's my question? I guess it
We
looks like
have
it
used-
comes from state. Yeah, I was wondering, like, do we need this or what's your opinion? on it?
Well, we have used it before, you know,
Okay.
if you get behind somebody that's littering or so forth, but
Mm.
yeah, it's probably pulled straight from state code or could, you know, line up with state code, but
Mhm.
I think it's nice to have it there.
Okay, all right. That's what I want your advice, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
guess that's the difference too, if it's Jeff's on now. So even if it's exactly what's said in state code, if we don't say it here, then it can only be charged under state code and follow whatever their remedy process is too. If we have it here, then for example, we can do our fines like we were just talking about.
Right.
Okay, so there's, yeah. Okay. All right, sorry. I
No, that's,
distracted you.
please ask questions as we go along, because I didn't mean to skip over all
No,
of it.
no, you're fine.
Yeah, y'all probably haven't had time to review all of this. But I was talking about the solid waste disposal and items that are prohibited to be disposed of at the landfill. Actually, items 1, 3, and 4, limbs and stumps, automobiles and parts and liquid waste.
Mhm.
Actually, they can be deposited in the landfill now, so,
Down there, we can't.
yeah. And also, when the agreement was written, Glenwood Farms was very worried about chickens and the diseases, going around in the poultry business. So under number 10, it says, under no circumstances may any dead chickens from poultry operations be placed in the landfill, but they are. So that should need to come out too. And Glenwood Farms is not there anymore.
Yeah.
Then we get to the remote waste collection recycling sites, which I think should be changed to convenience centers. And one thing that I would kind of like to clean up there, it currently states that the convenience centers are for use by authorized contractors of the County of Amelia and are used for the use and benefit for the resident householders of the County of Amelia and are for the deposit of residential household waste only. The way we've always interpreted that was if you own property in Amelia, any waste that you produce on that property is eligible for free disposal. So I just kind of reworded that to change it to resident householders of the County of Amelia to Amelia County property owners and are for the deposit of residential household waste generated in the County of Amelia only.
But it is still residential only, so,
Yeah.
okay. Mhm.
So that was my
What
suggestion.
constitutes an authorized contractors of the county?
That would be like waste management.
Waste management.
Oh, okay.
Does that include building contractor?
We've been back and forth with a lot of that. If they were in business at the signing of the agreement back in 1990, yes, they have free disposal. If not, they have to create an account and pay.
Okay.
But now there's also a fine line. A lot of times a contractor will say, well, I'm tearing down a house in Amelia. Can I bring it to the landfill for free? And generally the answer is yes, because it's Amelia waste. As long as they're not charging the homeowner, which we try to
Oh, okay.
make sure for the disposal.
all right.
you know.
Okay.
Okay. Lost my place. Okay, they're the dead chickens again, under F. And that should come out. And then as Joseph brought up before, we could remove all cardboard boxes shall be flattened because nobody's enforcing that before
Yeah.
disposal. And then again, waste collection recycling sites need to be changed to convenience centers. Then we get to a whole section on recycling, and this speaks to what Joseph was talking about. This is all policy. There's nothing in there that we enforce. So whether to take that whole section out, we do address it. We do address recycling and what our expectations of waste management is in doing that for the county in the Maplewood landfill agreement and the special exception permit. So it is covered there if we decide we want to take it out here.
What are supervisors' thoughts on that, on the kind of policy and wish list type stuff?
It's redundant.
If it's redundant, I was going to say that.
And not enforceable.
Right.
Yeah,
It's not
Not-
it
mandatory.
doesn't seem important, yeah. Mhm.
And you feel it's all adequately covered elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, what the responsibilities of waste management to
Or take it out.
collect and park it in our recycled forest.
What does it say about the special exemption permit? Where does that come into play at?
They kind of mirror each other, the agreement and special exception permit
Okay.
on most of the items in the agreement. I didn't bring my copy with me tonight, but we can check on that. Then we get to used tire storage and accumulation, and this is kind of a tricky one. We've had a lot of problems with tires in the past.
I see a lot of them.
Yeah, early on, we cleaned up a lot of tire piles in Amelia through the state program, which no longer exists. But we also cleaned up tires for a couple of businesses. And this is a pretty exhaustive article here about what people are supposed to do if they have over 100 tires. It's never been enforced. I'm not saying it shouldn't be, but it's never been enforced that they have to have a fire control plan. I mean, it's very extensive what they have to do. Generally, we were never made aware of when a new business came in that was going to have over 100 tires. And so they were already full-blown operation before we were aware they were there. Not to say we can't go in and make them do it now, if y'all want to keep that.
What does it say? I mean, I think it's there and it looks like it's got the state co-reference too, because it is a safety issue. I mean, we see, you can look on.
Reference by the code.
Yeah, because tire fires get out of control for sure.
And they're nasty.
Yeah. So I was trying to differentiate here though between that and like the section 15. So 15 is talking purely about used tires, I guess. So whereas the fire plan probably is addressing more like someone selling tires, I guess. Is that?
Well, it's interesting because the article is titled Used Tire Storage and Accumulation. It doesn't mention anything about new
Okay.
tires.
No.
And I also had
The
highlighted,
purpose doesn't really, when you get to the first purpose, it doesn't really say used only. It's
no, it doesn't.
stockpiling of tires.
And that could be just strike used and have tire storage and accumulation.
Mm-hmm.
Might be a
And
thing to do.
that makes it all the
Yeah. And then I think you could do like in the general app. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, just make it about tires. Like the safety aspect doesn't matter whether it's a used one or a new one, right? And then I think you could take maybe the general application and in addition to having the farm carve out, you could have a carve out for a business related to, somehow like, I mean,
They are allowed to have, I believe, up to 100 businesses are. Under 16A, it says if you've accumulated more than 100 tires, that's when the fire control plan kicks in. So you could have up to 100 if you're a business. The individual.
oh, I see, because
individual homeowners-
B is what said, oh, okay. If they're
Individual
business.
homeowners can only have up to 10, but businesses could have up to 100 before they have to institute that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I hadn't read through 15B yet. I see, that's where the exception for business, okay, I got you. Mm-hmm.
And of course, I thought we should strike that any tire should be turned over every 90 days. I mean, how are we going to enforce that one?
Yeah.
Go back and put a little mark on each one of them and come back 90.
It seems like every time you do something with tires, you start looking, you driving around the road, you start seeing where you just roll them off.
Yeah.
A truckload comes out and
Drop them
one
in.
every 50 yards down
Mhm.
the road.
Yeah, that's what we tried to have the tire amnesty every year, and we didn't have it last year because of the whole COVID thing. And we haven't had one yet this year. It'll probably be next spring before we are able to do it again, but we do collect them at the landfill for a fee, and a lot of people do bring them in. Yeah, not everybody wants to pay for them though. So yeah, they are a problem. I just wish we could come up with something to do with them because they last forever. I mean, what lasts forever these days?
Yeah.
So yeah, to my knowledge, they are two tire places in Amelia right now.
Least.
There's one next to Winterham Market that's got way more than 100 tires stacked up.
They are working on getting them cleaned up. But yes, they're the main one that is the concern.
And they've moved they've moved at least three different locations around the county. and
Yes.
Leave their tires each time.
Yes.
So that's part of what I think is like some of this, then if it's the right rules, then we should enforce them too. Yes, which includes the finding.
Maybe now's a good time when he's out there cleaning up to go in and tell him, look, this is the rules and.
Yeah,
Tell them the new rules
Yeah.
and fine should be more than the disposal fee. Otherwise,
yeah.
We do have a local tire removal business now too,
Yes, we do.
that the county could utilize.
Mhm. That's good. Oh, well,
I've used them myself. I know Robbie Avery uses them.
mhm. Well, and to that point, when you were talking back about, lawns and maintenance, which we've got more discussion, I'm sure we need to do on that, but you're talking about, do you send somebody out or use the county? I don't think I would ever use the public works, because there are times already consumed to something
Right.
else. Support a business in the county, like
Right.
maybe have someone on, or you bid it out every couple of years and have a business on retainer that does that.
Yep.
Then they have their costs and
Yeah.
that's what gets passed on to the,
I think that's a good idea.
plus some kind of administrative fee or fine on top of it, but,
Right.
and that's, again, we still gotta go back and work on that, but, yeah. Okay,
That's a big one, but that probably should be broken out. We do also have a tire recycling ordinance.
I'll hold it.
Yeah. I know where I put that over here. I didn't hear someone.
Would you suggest maybe merging those two into
Yes.
a tire ordinance?
Tire recycling ordinance was adopted in 2012.
that's not part of K.
No. And basically, it's mostly policy too. It does have some stuff about, what we charge, what to do with tires, bring them to maybe with a landfill, how much it costs and who it covers. But I think we could merge those. I think it would make sense too. That one is SSS, triple S.
Why do we, yeah, okay.
What's your question, Joseph?
No, I'm just commenting on the names of these things.
Oh.
Strange.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you and Jeff have some really practical ideas from this, and I feel like you got a little bit of feedback from us, most of which is, yeah, sounds
Mhm.
good. Like, here's the main things I hear is like, yeah, breaking it out, a little better organization, pull the tire stuff together between that one and this one. I think we seemed pretty good on if it's just policy or not enforceable, try to take it out. If it's something that's going to stay in there, let's make sure we can enforce it, get, clear on the fees, et cetera. Maybe y'all could, so I'm proposing this to the group. Maybe Jeff and Patty could then go back based on our support generally of what they've suggested here and start working on those. And y'all could even just break them up, like the tire one seems pretty straightforward. For example, like if you wanted to come in and say, now here's the new tire, and then, next month, maybe you got the one on trash or what, yeah, just kind of take them in sections. And then I think if you have a working draft, then we could get down to the point of looking like at a specific something, like, does this feel right or not? I'm not speaking for anyone saying we agree with all the content, but that just seems like a practical way to move it forward. Feels, okay,
Yeah, I'm good.
okay. I mean, I don't feel like it's a motion necessarily, just to
Right.
go on the right track, it seems like, and
Okay,
keep working toward it.
sure. Yeah, and see what
Does that give you some kind of what you need for tonight? Like, we want to make sure we're not just leaving y'all blind to.
What do you think, Jeff?
That makes sense to me. Yeah, that sounds good. I appreciate all the work Patty's done. And I
Yeah,
think
yes.
we can get together. And some of this is like all the tire stuff. A lot of that is state law, and DEQ has a role.
Yeah,
So we'll check for all that stuff too. Moving to civil penalties, I think that's smart, a little more feasible, than criminal sanctions. So yeah, I think between what the legal stuff we've noted and then Patty's suggestions and your input, we can start putting stuff together to get this in proper order for you to start considering changes.
I'm sorry, I forgot one other thing I meant to ask. I didn't remember, I've glanced fairly quickly, so it might be in there. What about, like when we believe there could be a safety issue with a home, or a building? Let me take it back. I don't just mean a home, a building. So I can think of a building that got hit by a vehicle a couple years back, was already abandoned. It's very precarious at this point. I think, in other counties, you see things where they say the building is condemned, and therefore can't be occupied or must be torn down. Like I don't see something that would address things like that in ours. Are you aware of anything?
That's through the building department in the town.
Richard Jones gets called out. He got called out to one up y'all's way, right there in the P intersection.
Yeah,
He got called to that before they pulled the car out.
but it's sat there for 5 years since then, though.
Not, apparently, because it sat there, maybe it wasn't going to fall.
Okay, well, okay. Maybe just have him look at stuff a little more often. Maybe it's what you're saying, the same as with this. It's no one's out proactively doing it. I'm not saying they should be, and so.
Yeah, I
we
think
need
usually
people to
it's
address-
a case where a tree falls on a house or something, and you have
Mhm.
to determine if it's okay for the people to still live there or not. I think
Yeah.
that's the sort of thing, more so than maybe just a abandoned house that's fallen down.
Mhm.
I don't think he usually does that sort of
But
thing.
we do get calls,
Used to get,
not monthly.
well, I'm Busick used to get them on.
That's right. Not monthly, but he'll have several calls a year. Whether it's a health thing or danger to the neighborhood concern,
Mhm.
he will go out and take a look at it, make a ruling one way or the other. And he has had board things up.
Okay, and so he has maybe it would be interesting at a upcoming meeting then to have him talk us through, like, is that he has an ordinance he's following and therefore it's enforced? Because getting around a lot of this is the question of enforceability. So I'm not doubting that Richard responds to the complaints he gets. I'm not doubting he goes out and does something, but if someone doesn't want to comply or chooses not to, like, does he have real option to do that? And, a lot of this conversation started because of a couple Pete properties. I think one of those properties, at least in the courthouse area we've talked about, I think it's more than just an eyesore. I think it looks dangerous for the occupants. I think that could be interesting to, because to your, you talked about earlier, like how much do we want to be enforced? I think the difference if you're looking at it from a safety standpoint versus just we got to be careful. You talked about earlier about, subjective about
Yeah, you gotta,
something looking, but if it's a safety problem, that's a little bit clearer. And if you have someone like for building code, I'd just be interested in hearing what he does.
I'm not aware of any building code that I know there's new construction building code, you gotta build the code, but I don't know if there's a code for.
There is.
House. There is?
Yes. Jeff, go ahead.
Well, the county has not adopted a property maintenance code, and that's taken on a whole new role for your building department. If you want to start policing how people maintain their property, that's what maintenance codes are for. And you don't have to, that would be taking a hammer when I think you can use a surgical knife on this, and that would be considering a spot blight ordinance. So that would require adoption of an ordinance. Yeah, pursuant to state law that allows you to address basically unsafe conditions that become nuisances. And there's a variety of ways you can do it, but generally state law sets out the process as far as how you have to notify the owner before you can do anything. What it takes to qualify for something that is blighted, different avenues to abate the problem. So that's all set out in statute and would require the adoption of an ordinance to do that.
So I don't know, we obviously, like Jeff said, don't have property maintenance now, but I know Richard can condemn houses. Cause we get calls a lot from like the not Justice Department, whatever, but like parole officers and stuff. Cause as people are leaving jail, they give the address of where they're going, and Richard has to go in first to make sure it's a safe place to live. And then they're not living in a condemned home. So I don't know where that authority comes from. I don't know if that comes from the state, the Unified Building Code or whatever it is, but he can condemn things, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe it'd be a good idea for him to speak to how that process looks.
Is the board interested in hearing what the current process and allowances
Why don't
are?
we want to drag him out or at night or just have him write something up for us?
Oh, that's what I said, just hearing about it, so.
What do you think, Taylor?
He's got good broadband. You know, you could get him to appear this way. He does live up Sailor's Creek. But I'm.
Looked like you had a different thought. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah. I think we ought to hear what he's got to say. I do.
Okay, that was my only question, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want the building maintenance. Personally, I'm
Yeah,
not looking forward to that.
I don't want to, I think we're opening up a can of worms if we get into condemning property and that's not a road we want to go down.
Well, what I'm hearing is he does condemn properties.
I mean, he does if he has,
Safe.
when he goes, but,
Right.
we could get neighbors calling with their houses, you know, I don't think it's a bad deal. But I wouldn't be willing to hear what he's got to say.
I just to be clear though, I don't think I hear anyone saying we want to go down that property maintenance. So it feels like you're saying you're disagreeing with what we're saying, but I don't think.
I'm not disagreeing.
Okay, that's good. I just make sure we're on the same page. Yeah.
Get the facts, but.
Right. I think that's all we're looking for.
And then-
Yeah.
It is covered under maintenance of premises under the solid waste ordinance. I mean, that does speak to health and safety.
Okay.
It talks about maintaining property at all times free from an accumulation of solid waste, which endangers the health or safety of residents, and also the foreign growth, you know, the plant growth, if it presents a danger to the health or safety of county residents.
So what prevents us today from then, like to both of those things you just said, accumulation of debris and overgrowth apply to the property we've talked about here?
We've got a letter.
What prevents us, I know we've sent letters a couple times, but what prevents us from enforcing that then?
Well, nothing. We need to send out a letter with a 10-day notice.
Didn't we do that in January?
No, that was just a conversational.
Okay.
piece.
Okay.
You know,
I'm just trying to understand the process.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
encourage you to do the right thing.
Okay.
But we have one ready to go now that's official.
Okay.
We would send certified mail, and if nothing is done in 10 days, then we can move forward.
Okay. I think that's the understanding that, which is why I'm interested in understanding Richard's too. Like, if we understand what exists today and then like, do we have the tools or not? We don't necessarily need to do something new.
Right.
If it's really just a choice we need to make about stuff, you know, but I definitely like to start with just.
Yeah, and right now,
seeing
what
where we are
we
versus
do is-
adding ordinances.
You know, if 10 days he hadn't done anything, then we say, well, we're going to take you to court.
Mhm.
You have to go in front of a magistrate, pull a subpoena, because it's still criminal right now.
Okay.
And then
That's the key distinction, Mr. Chair, is
Mhm.
that it's a much higher bar to enforcement when it's a criminal action versus a civil fine that can be done administratively. When you, so that's what the current ordinance does not provide for.
Okay. Thank you. Both of your answers help me. Okay. Appreciate it.
And that answered the other question. Administrative fines, so you don't have to deal with.
Yeah. I guess we need to then set what those fines, like we just need to be really clear what those fines are and then okay.
First offense, second offense, whatever.
Right. Yeah, that-
Yeah, I know one of them said something like a maximum of whatever per year. Yeah.
I think Jeff had shown us one that said $50 first violation, 200
Mhm.
subsequent violations, maximum 3,000 a 12-month period.
Yeah, I don't think it's
pretty
about trying to make,
prescribed
like
by
our goal
state
isn't to
code.
make money. Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Mr. Chair.
No,
I was just gonna say, it's the civil penalties provisions are pretty prescribed by state law. So if you adopt the ordinance, it's pretty much decided what the penalties would be based on state law.
Mhm. And I haven't heard anyone in any conversations here or offline, either one saying it's about trying to make money.
No.
It's just enough to hold someone accountable. Like
Right.
you said about the tires. Enough to make it where it's cheaper for them to deal with
Yeah,
it
exactly.
than the penalty, but yeah. Okay, great. Anybody else have questions for Jeff or Patty on this?
We did a good job.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you both for moving that forward.
My question is,
Oh,
what's the time frame for getting it finished?
I was gonna let y'all think about it, but yeah, do you have an idea of when you think you could start moving through with these and then?
I don't see why we couldn't do it in a month or two.
Yeah, the sooner we get the criminal changed to civil, then you can start enforcing it yourself.
Mhm. Okay, that sounds great then.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get to work on it.
Perfect, thank you.
Well, just to clarify, it requires 2 weeks. It would require a public hearing. So that means 2 consecutive weeks of advertising. Just keep that in mind, the time frame.
Okay, let's try to get more specific then. Could we work toward having drafts,
Mhm.
not advertised, but purely drafts for our discussion for next month's workshop?
Okay.
And seriously, draft, I'm trying to emphasize that, like, if you're like, hey, I'm still working on this, I don't have, great, just kind of call that out. And then let's just see where the draft falls next month to whether we then feel like we need to go through one more month of draft, or if we're close enough, we could make a couple changes and advertise it for November then.
But I'm saying you got a good. You got the
All marked up
framework
already.
there.
Yeah, I think you've got a lot. I hesitate putting people on the spot all the time, but you're right. We need to get clear for your sake too, so you know what we're expecting. So
Okay.
it's a good call. Yeah.
Yeah, she can say no. I mean.
Yeah. No, you're right. No, I said you're right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm emphasizing the draft too, like where you are and come back. Yeah. Okay. And if you're going through the draft and you have questions, you can reach out and we can one-on-one poll people. We can't have a meeting, of course, but
Right.
we can get some feedback to you. Or you can send it out and we can all reply individually to you for feedback too. We just can't do group responses. All right, well, thank you.
Did we do the last one? The
Oh.
interoperable vehicles?
We didn't ever get to that, but I didn't know if y'all wanted the minutia, get in the weeds.
We can, I think.
I mean, it's there. I mean,
Yeah,
we're working on it anyhow. so-
right. Yeah, I think that should be another separate ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we don't go out looking for this stuff. We just respond to complaints.
Is there many complaints?
It kind of runs in cycles. It hadn't been as many recently. Used to be a lot. Jeff had given us,
Steel went up.
he was
Oh,
I took care of most stuff.
the price of steel. Yeah.
metal prices right now.
Right, I'm not sure right now.
A lot of them got cleaned up when the metal prices went sky high a few years ago.
Yeah, 2012-ish,
Yeah,
15.
that helped a lot.
Mm.
We could get those prices back. It'd be good.
Yeah.
Jeff had proposed that we needed to clarify this section and bring it in line with state code. The only real thing that I had noted was state code says that if it's shielded or screened from view, it means it's not visible by someone standing at ground level from outside the property on which the subject vehicle is located. I think that's nuts. Myself personally, having dealt with this, we've always, in our ordinance, it says shielded or screened from any public roadway.
Yeah, because you're getting a bit,
I mean, where are you
most
standing?
property has multiple sides.
Yeah, and where's the property line? Are you crossing the property line? And
I mean, as
At
far
the
as,
same time, if you had three houses in a row and the middle house had a screen of some sort in the front that blocked it from the road, but they just had piles of cars behind them, the two neighbors are subjected to all that too. Like,
yeah, and generally in that.
I don't know how to address it, by the way, because I also understand that.
Yeah, if a neighbor called us and they can give us permission to go onto their property.
Mhm.
And then if we see it,
right,
then yeah, we can address it because over 5 cars is considered a junkyard by the state.
Hmm.
And us too, I think.
Good. Okay.
That's over 5 unregistered cars.
That don't have tags on them, yeah, or current inspection stickers with current registration.
And that's how inoperative is being
Yeah, not for,
defined, right?
well, it could be,
Although I think Jeff was saying we needed to update some of that, the definition for it. Yeah, our definition is
it could be inoperative,
pretty long.
operative and still be unregistered.
Yeah, this is all very prescribed in state law now. There's been a lot of changes to the statute over the years since the county's solid waste ordinance. So, I mean, it pretty much is all defined in the state code. We just have to adopt an ordinance that incorporates the state code provisions.
Okay.
I'm seeing it here.
I don't know. This is so long, I haven't. He's saying here is the next presentation in general.
Oh.
I have not gotten through all that. All right, well, thank you both. Appreciate it. All right, so we're moving on to the analysis completed by general code and reviewed. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, reviewed by I think Holly and Jeff both. Or one of y'all?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk. I'm gonna
Okay.
briefly chat.
Thank you,
Okay.
Holly.
So I sent that to you all last week to review. It is on the agenda for next week to do the public hearing for it.
Right.
Like I said in my email, there were no earth-shattering changes. It was mainly just updating state code references, and there were areas of the ordinance that completely contradicted other areas. So it was bringing those into agreement, grammatical things, but as far as actual content changes, weren't really any. Roger did reach out with a few things that have changed since I sent it out. And let me just talk about those really quick. Question 7-001 about restricting the sale of alcohol. The sheriff's department said that's not enforced, so we had that removed.
It said you couldn't sell alcohol after noon on Saturday.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was like,
Everybody does it.
Sorry. Yes. Yeah. The sale of alcohol. And then it talked about the curfew for minors.
That one's staying.
That one is staying. They said they do. It doesn't get enforced often, but it is
Good to have.
still.
Mhm.
Let's see, 157-003. That was about charging a $200 fee if fire and rescue had to come for certain things, and they said that actually does get charged sometimes. So that one is.
The question I had on that one was who's charging? Because there's this whole thing with the property tax. If they charge for service, is this fee for fire and rescue or just rescue?
Must just be.
And who charges it? The
It must just
county
be.
I think it's just.
Or
I
the,
think it's just for rescue, but that was one of the questions that I asked the sheriff's department when they.
No, and if you do, it opens
I
you up.
forget
to a
where it is in
whole
there,
bunch
but it
of other
says
things.
something about if you respond to an accident, then fees will be charged. So is that both fire and rescue or just rescue? Because rescue charges on their own, don't they?
They charge for patient care.
Okay, not for responding to an accident.
No.
Well, this talks about responding to an accident. That's why I asked, that's why I questioned it.
I see it. Yeah, it's not really very, it just, you're right, emergency response.
Yeah, not accident, but emergency.
Well, but that's the title, but then you're right, it's the fee for each accident or incident. You're right.
So
So
I asked
those
Polly
were
to
the
check and she
ones.
said it is being charged, but is that going to get the fire department in trouble?
Yeah,
From this?
It sounds like what we need to do is take the very general emergency response and be specific on, does that
What
mean?
fees and who charges them? and-
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. But other than that, all of the questions for each individual department or office were filled out by that respective department head. So these aren't just my opinions. They came from the people who enforce the respective ordinance. And this is what they felt were the best options. And if things were not enforced, they were removed. So this was just mainly to see if you all had any questions about the ordinance or any of the changes being proposed.
You're
Good
further
job.
ahead.
I went through the
You're
whole-
further ahead than I
I
am.
went
on
through the whole
those.
thing and I only had 7 questions and she answered them all. It was just the one about the fees that I was concerned about. Everything else she took care of. All it.
One of the questions I had put 2 responses on there, and that was a mistake on my part. And
Yeah,
we went back and fixed that, and that one was one of the do not revise questions.
Hmm. Okay, so let me just test my understanding based on that. I just happened to scroll through it. I'm on question 164.
Sure.
I need the number, but Patty's sitting here. That's what you said. It is about the tire recycling that you mentioned, and they're asking about how should they refer to the department? So you said department heads went through, like, you then took this question since it's related to Patty's area. You asked Patty, how should we handle it?
Right.
You gave back the response that's written here and, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I had meetings with every department head and every constitutional officer.
Okay, gotcha. That sounds like a great process. Yeah.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I know it's a lot, so I mean, we have another week. So if y'all come across anything you have questions about, you can just email me and I'll do what I can to answer them.
Since we're talking about fees related to a lot of this stuff, and then I went to the next page and it's the tire fee you happened to mention earlier too. In our budget process from earlier this year, for what appears to be at least the first time recently, we tried to pull together, and Carla worked on it, like all the fees the county charges and look through and see what should be adjusted. And we did a couple adjustments. My memory is not good enough to remember. Do you remember if like the fees though for recycling of tires and things like that were listed in that
I don't.
consolidate with her? I don't think they were either. Like they don't really stand out. I think it would be helpful for us going, like we talked about, there was some value in us looking through what those fees were. We made some adjustments to the degree that every year we can get that more and more comprehensive list, pull in things like this. It'd be good because I think one, it's nice for us to know what are the fees we're charging, and that gives us the opportunity. Are they too high? Are they too low? Should there be no fee for this at all? And adjust over time. So that's not a complaint. That's just those are
Right, and
I'll be back to budget time.
we do,
Really
no,
fast.
that is a separate line item when we deposit the money, so it'd be easy
Okay.
for us to pull it out.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not a lot of money.
I wouldn't think that it is, but it just helps us again, but make sure we know, what's
Right.
going on. Okay. All right, so you're advertised, so we're in good shape for next week then. We just send
Yep.
you any further questions. I know it's been posted on the website for a while, so if citizens have any concerns or questions, they would raise them as well beforehand or during the public hearing. Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
so we'll be voting on this next week.
Public hearing and then vote. Yeah, that's my
Correct, yeah.
understanding.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That concludes the 2 stated items on the agenda. Do we have a need for a closed session tonight for any purpose?
I do got one discussion before you,
Oh.
on the agenda, so we can.
Oh, that's perfectly fine.
You talk about this targeted property. We all know where it is.
Yeah.
Could we address that a different way? Business 360, is that any different than the roads around the courthouse square? What I'm getting at, if that is a different class of road, could we go on the on-street parking and go that route and get the trucks off the road? That's what I hear complaints about it.
Well, the trucks are shielding all the other stuff.
They are, but that's, I keep,
But the trucks, I agree, that's part of the safety problem that people talk about, yeah.
before we drag this through court and drag it, all that, is there another way we could do? I don't want to keep people from parking on the street in the courthouse, in the courthouse square, but is Business 360 something that we could possibly go that route? That would help them clean this stuff up. And we avoid, just a thought I had.
There's a lot of people that park on the street on that road. The apartments next to the monitor. You're gonna have to do it to them too if you do it to this guy. Right.
Take a little, I mean, I don't want to impact the monitor, but I was just,
Know what you're trying to do, but other.
No, not the monitor, next door. The
Yeah.
apartment building.
Can I say something?
sure.
I think maybe a time limit on
Uh,
street parking on,
Mhm.
that might solve the problem. Now, a lot of the businesses that have customers park, but
Mhm.
not overnight parking.
I
Well,
was
'cause
trying to
you're
think of a different avenue.
There is a vehicle at the apartments you're talking about, been in the same spot for now multiple months too. So it is really no different. I mean, that's, you're talking about a fairness point too. Like, it is the same issue. It just,
Who regulates no parking zones? Is that VDOT or is that? Because, you go to some counties and you can't park anywhere. Or, some places. So I wonder who does no parking.
Yeah, whether it's VDOT or the sheriff's department.
Jeff, do you have any idea who mandates like on-street parking? Like, is that something we control rules for, or is that VDOT? And if you don't know off the top of your head, that's fine. It's just,
Sometimes
That
it
would
can
be
like
up to the,
street
if the county wants to regulate parking, it would have to adopt an ordinance to regulate parking.
It was
You
just a
can do,
thought.
you can do meters, you can do time restrictions, but it's set out in state code and it would be done by local ordinance.
Do we have an ordinance?
And it might be opening up a can of worms we don't know. That's just a thought.
I think it's painful.
Okay.
We'll park it in the power lane. I thought we had to pass an ordinance.
But it has to be a remedy.
yeah, I like where you're going. Like, there's gotta be, I like the creative idea. Absolutely. Let's look at all the options available. That was my intent in all of this, is look at what's available to us. You notice I haven't proposed anything new at this. I'm like, let's learn, find out what we have.
We got it in process. policy.
Exactly. Okay. You good with,
I'm good.
okay. I wasn't trying to cut you off, just to make sure. So anything else tonight? All right, we've come to the end of the stated agenda then, so,
To judge.
all right, all those in favor, respond with sign of aye. Aye. Thank you, meeting adjourned. See you next Wednesday.
Thank y'all.
Hi.
Robin Frank.
Oh, Lynchburg. Oh, wow.
Thanks, Patty, appreciate it.
Yeah, and if any of y'all have any